answer is out there. It's the question that drives us.
What is the Matrix? The Matrix is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth?
They're watching you, Neo. You're in danger.
Buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye.
Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself.
Whoa. The Matrix.
Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hi. Oh my goodness, I'm excited for this one.
Me too.
Yeah, this I think we all have a long history.
I have a big page of notes, so I won't be looking down at my iPad the entire time. I'll try to stay in the moment.
All right, sounds good. Well, everybody out there listening, my name is Pete.
And I'm Scott, and these are the movies that made us gay. Back to an evening recording. We were doing these for a few weeks in the morning, but now we're back to our regular old nights.
No, I don't like mornings.
Mm-hmm.
I sleep in.
But we are talking about a really fun movie today with an old friend of mine, Drew Stanley.
Hello. Welcome to the show. Thank you.
And we watched The Matrix from 1999, directed by Lana and Lily Wachowski.
Yes, indeed. Yep.
So, Drew, you wanted to do The Matrix, and it's interesting because The Matrix was not on my long list. And when you texted to me, I'm like, oh, of course. Like, we have to do The Matrix.
Yeah, clearly, yeah. I think it's important to say, you know, this movie, because the two directors are both trans women, at the time had not been out yet, but there's been tons and tons of writing about the sort of parallels to a trans coming out experience and the story of The Matrix. But I think it also is just very queer in general. A lot of queer people can really identify with the sort of journey that you have in this movie. It's just, I was very young when it came out, so I did not see it in theaters, but I did rent it as soon as I could and just loved it, and I've seen it many, many times.
Yeah, I mean, we're used to doing movies where we usually have to stretch with, like, queer theory or kind of explain why we're picking this movie. But this one, definitely when you rewatch it, it hits you over the head. Like, there's nothing subtle about its themes.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. It's not even just a trans allegory. There's so many metaphors, and it just beats you over the head with them. But it's there's a lot of that going on in here for sure.
But done in the best possible way. That it's so interesting that this made it past major movie studios that may have been cautious about themes like this. I mean, these movies were a huge hit in 1999, released March 31st of that year, and yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, totally. It was a there's a lot of things that we'll talk about later on. I'm sure, like different decisions that they made that the studio was a little wary about making that ended up not making it into the movie. But in general, the fact that this movie got greenlit and had the budget that it did is just wild. And it was a great success. And that was why the Wachowskis were able to sort of just make whatever they wanted to afterwards.
Right. I feel like at the time, the queerness of it, the trans allegory, all of that conversation, I feel like it kind of went over the heads of the general public seeing this movie.
I would say so as well, too,
you know? Because I was in college when this movie came out, and it was my first year, not that old, but I was in college, and it was an event. It was a thing that kind of changed, like, sci-fi movies. Sci-fi movies were in a weird place with, like, CGI, like, effects, where like, they were there, but they were real bad still, you know. Sci-fi movies had, like, they were, you know, very genre-specific. They were kind of weird and kooky, but not really respected. This came around. It changed a lot of things for, you know, genre movies in general, and I just remember people just wouldn't stop talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just this thing where it's like, you saw it in the movies, you saw it again. What was your favorite fight scene? Who's your favorite character? What's your favorite costume? Like, people just dissecting this movie, and again, kind of blissfully unaware of
totally
you know, what's really going on under the surface. But I think it got a lot of conversations going, and you know, the Wachowski brothers being credited as, just kind of a singular unit. Their names are not really in there individually until later on. Mm-hmm. The fact that they were kind of reclusive as public figures just kind of led to a little air of mystery about it and about them.
Or like when they did make public appearances, I forget which one, is it Lana or Lily, but went to the premiere with like a dominatrix.
It was probably Lana.
I think it was Lana.
So
Lana was the first one to come out after the Matrix came out. They had not transitioned yet, of course, and then like I think it was like 2 or 3 years after the Matrix came out, and they'd announced the sequels. Lana did her first big public appearance, and she was Lana at that point, and that was kind of where the gears started turning for the general public about what was coming there for sure. But even when they made the Matrix, they both, in fact, Lily Wachowski just recently did an interview with like Netflix to talk about just her legacy, and she's doing a show on Netflix. And I think that was her main thing that she was plugging, but she was talking about the Matrix and how they did have an intentional sort of narrative going on there about being trans, but it was, like you said, Pete, it just went completely over the heads of most people. They were just like, wow, this movie is such a cool sci-fi movie. This is so crazy, and there was not really any sort of, people weren't really thinking about that at that time, I guess. It wasn't also like culturally out in the forefront as much as it is now, and so her started being like a few years ago, so I think that's a big part of it too.
Absolutely. At the time I was working at a skateboard shop, and all of my coworkers were just like straight dudes, these like kind of like, there were girls that worked there, but they were like kooky raver girls, so it was a very interesting specific little pocket of like people that I worked with. And, they all adored it because, like, the raver chicks loved it. Like, the straight skater dudes, they were all about it, because we played, like, kung fu movies in the store and all that. But there was, there's the one character, Switch.
Right.
Love
And
Switch.
Switch is just, like, this fierce, like, she's got, like, the butch, bleach blonde, like, hairdo. And, like, she comes out when they're in the Matrix and you first see her in there. Well, it's not when you first see her in there, but when, they're all in the Matrix together and she steps out in her all white. Yep. Titties out, just like
everyone else is wearing like jet black clothing, jet black hair.
Yes,
yeah.
And that was a sticking point that a lot of the guys were just like, "What's up with it?" And they were like, "Do you think it's because like she's this lesbian?" Because they automatically were like, "She's a lesbian because she's got short hair." Yeah. I was like, "All right." And even at the time, I was like, "I don't know. That's weird." I was like, "This movie is a type of movie that." Everything on screen is there for a purpose.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every little bit that's shown is there because of there was a thought about it. So the fact that this hoe walks out in all white with bleach blonde hair and she's so androgynous and she's so kind of has this masculine energy that even Trinity, who is an androgynous character, Switch is even more so.
Yeah, Trinity is very feminine at the same. Like I think Trinity's more on the feminine side of her androgyny, where Switch is very much kind of in the middle. And in fact, Switch's character, and you all might have been about to get to this, but Switch's character actually was written to be a woman in the real world, or a man in the real world and a woman in the Matrix. Okay. And Warner Brothers wouldn't go with it. But that was what the Wachowskis had originally written into the film.
Yeah.
And kind of by casting her, they found this common ground. Yeah. Because it sort of works when you think about that. Yeah. When you look at her performance, you can say that they definitely had that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But just weren't maybe so upfront about it.
Yeah, and
it's
she's
there,
the only one that, like you said, Pete, wearing all white, and so they're kind of putting a spotlight on this character. Like, you need to pay attention to this person.
Yeah, look at her.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so, and that's another thing about this movie that kind of just fascinated people, that, like, I was, like, the nerdy, like, movie kid, at the skate shop and, like, at college and stuff, and so they were all, like, asking me, like, what do you think? Like, what does all this stuff mean? And blah, 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 and I'm just showing them, like, the very first scene of the movie, Trinity's running from the cops across rooftops, and like I brought in a VHS of like Vertigo and like showed them the opening of Vertigo, and they were just like, "Oh my god, they ripped it off!" And I was just like, "Yeah, you guys just like watch this movie so closely that think about like everything that you're seeing." And that was just me, like dummy, not even knowing, pre, Lana and Lily coming out and all that stuff,
Right.
just latching onto anything I could.
I was reading that the rooftop sets were repurposed from Dark City.
Yeah.
Well, that tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes
Really
total
interesting.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. That was another thing. I don't think I had seen Dark City at that point.
It's been a while since I've seen Dark City.
Yeah.
I think it needs a rewatch.
Well, it really does. And, Dark City, The Matrix, and then City of Lost Children, which is a French movie.
Oh, yes.
They kind of have this, like, little trilogy of, like, kooky, spooky, like, weird, where are we?
Do they call it cyberpunk?
Yeah. I think it's because the Matrix actually was really informed by a lot of different things. It's like a very big amalgamation movie, but it's an anime called Ghost in the Shell, which is a very cyberpunk movie and has that same sort of aesthetic as those other films that you were talking about too. Very dark, very like it's always in a city, like in an abandoned warehouse and stuff like that is always the scene. Yeah,
Raining.
And the internet has a huge component of it as well as being very digital at the same time.
Right. Didn't I read that the Wachowskis originally kind of just wanted to adapt Ghost in the Shell, or
I'm not sure.
Or maybe they showed it to Joel Silver.
I wonder
they were
if-
just like, it's going to be like this. And he was like, cool.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, because they also wanted to add in the sort of spaghetti western feeling to it as well, which you see in a lot of the fight scenes. They have the close-up of the person's wrist like cracking as they're facing their opponent. In the scene where Neo and Agent Smith are fighting in the train station, the paper bag rolls between them like a tumbleweed. It's very borrowed from a spaghetti western.
Definitely.
I mean, you got to hand it to Joel Silver. He was just a huge fan of their breakout movie Bound with Jennifer Tilly and Gina Gershon, and just went to bat for these two.
Yeah,
like, he
I don't think
really-
it would have happened the way it did without him. Yeah,
He just wrote a blank check with them with the studio that they could do whatever that they wanted.
Yep.
Well, let's get a little kind of refresher on the plot of what's going on in The Matrix, and then we can talk a little bit more in depth about it. Keanu Reeves, which, and
Gorgeous.
again, I guess we'll
Gorgeous.
go into this. Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah.
One of my first
That
big
face.
moments where I was like, "Oh, I'm gay."
Yeah.
And even Keanu Reeves has a
pretty.
very androgynous look to him. Like,
Yeah.
he's not super masculine.
Yeah, he's
Especially
thin,
kind of
wiry.
at the time in the 90s where maybe we were a little more used to seeing action heroes like Bruce Willis,
Yeah.
Arnold,
Yeah.
that Keanu felt very fresh for this movie.
He kind of looks like a model.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not at least when he's still in the real world and hasn't been taken into the Matrix yet, he's very like sort of skinny and pasty looking, and not he's kind of the anti-hero at the very beginning a little bit.
Yeah. And interestingly, he had bulked up for Speed.
Yeah.
You know,
And cut off all that hair.
cut off all that hair, and it suits him in Speed. He looks good. It works, but he lost a lot of that mass that he had put on for
Well,
that.
and also, I think that Keanu was very lucky to get this movie because Keanu was at a time in his career where he was getting big Hollywood movies like The Devil's Advocate, but he would always be the weakest link in them. Like, he would always be singled out in the review of being awful.
Right.
So I feel like if it weren't for The Matrix, maybe he just would have flamed out, and we would just be remembering, hey, remember Keanu Reeves from Speed?
Right.
Do you think he
And
likes
Bill and Ted?
Do you think he sends like a box of See's candy to Will Smith like every
I know.
Yeah.
year?
Offered to Will Smith. Will Smith was like, no, thank you. I'm going to go make Wild Wild West.
Yeah, that's going to be a bigger success than The Matrix. Yeah, here we go.
Oh my goodness!
I love Will
Oh my
Smith though, and it
goodness.
would have been a very different movie had he been actually ended up being cast as Neo.
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I think he was definitely at a point in his, not only in his career, but just as a person, where he wouldn't have been able to step out of Will Smith and try to turn it into like a comedy.
Right. Right.
Would have just been Pluto Nash or something. terrible. So Keanu Reeves is Thomas Anderson.
Mr.
Right.
Anderson.
Mr. Anderson. Well, I mean, it doesn't even really start with Keanu Reeves. It starts off
Trinity.
With Trinity.
Yeah, and the rooftop scene is where we begin with the falling code, of course.
Right.
And they're talking. There's a phone call where they're talking about extracting Neo, and then we get our first shot of a live person where Trinity is on the phone call in this empty room in a warehouse, and the agents have shown up.
This bullet time action sequence that we get just launched 1,000 parodies.
Scary Movie, Shrek. They've all done it.
Oh my god,
Deuce Bigelow. Yeah.
I watched like a supercut or something of it, and I like the Shrek one just like tied my brain into knots. I was like, I cannot believe that exists.
Yeah, it's insane, and it's when we watched it the other night, it was also maybe one of the first instances of that sound effect where all of the audio drops out to that deep
boom.
Right. Yeah.
Shoom.
Exactly.
Which now just every Hollywood trailer has that sound effect in it
sure.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Regardless
or like,
of the genre.
Or any of the like Christopher Nolan movies, like that's a huge
yes.
thing. Like, boom. Yeah.
And it's interesting because that's a big money shot special effect. And it is the first scene of the movie.
Yeah. Oh,
they're just like, this is the world you're going to be in right now. Get
right
used to
into it. Yeah, it's crazy. And you get introduced to, you don't get like this sort of synopsis thing. They're just like, you're going to buckle into this. And,
you're going to drop the audience into it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like a shittier movie would have had like a crawl.
Probably like a text card,
card or something. And you're just like, what is going on? This is too much information. But it's more effective that you're just like, who is she? How is she doing this?
Right, yeah. A crappier movie would have done like they would have had the scene with Morpheus introducing Neo to what the Matrix is. That would have been at the beginning of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You get that beautiful Carrie-Anne Moss mug. That face on Carrie-Anne Moss is so beautiful.
She is gorgeous in this movie. In general, but in this movie especially, she's just like, she's always wearing like basically just like vinyl or plastic as clothing.
Yeah.
And Carrie-Anne Moss too, like such a fascinating choice that I would imagine that the Wachowskis would have had to gone to bat for her, because she was not a movie star, she was not a name. She was just sort of a working actress at the time, and you could have easily put in someone like Julia Roberts or Sandra Bullock in this role, but they wanted to do an unknown.
Yeah, weren't they looking at Sandra Bullock for Trinity at one point? Am I mistaken?
I had read in some like listicle that they even offered Sandra Bullock Neo.
Oh, right. Yeah. And then Trinity would have probably been male at that point.
Yeah.
We're like, Sandy, you made the net. You can do it.
Get in there, girl.
Yeah. So we get this crazy, intro fight scene, this super cool, like, jump situation that she does. She's climbing up walls. She's, like, jumping out windows, jumping across, huge chasms.
Love that shot
rooftops.
of her going through the window and then landing on the ground and drawing her gun.
Yeah, and then she's like, get up, Trinity, get up.
Yeah. Really
and Trinity,
cool.
like, bless this character, has inspired many a drag queen and stripper that just the legacy of Trinity lives on.
Yeah. I hope Carrie-Anne Moss is aware of this legacy. Like, I hope she knows that she has this drag following. And she inspired so many young gay boys. And girls maybe, or otherwise.
Yeah, it's true. She's evading these police officers, but also, what we find out is this agent, and who is more powerful than the actual humans, just as powerful as her.
Your men are already dead.
Yeah, love it. We get Hugo Weaving.
Love Hugo Weaving in this movie.
Yeah.
He
does a great
with that
job.
hairline. Yeah, he's really good, and I feel like I don't know. There's something about him. I just think he's really handsome in this movie.
Yeah, he does. He looks.
I'm
very
just
handsome.
like, ooh, okay.
You give me that juris my diction crap, you can cram it up your ass. The orders were for your protection. I think we can handle one little girl. I sent 2 units. They're bringing her down now.
No, Lieutenant, your men are already dead.
Something
Love a
about him
man
just
in-
like never smiling the entire time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love a man in a sharp suit.
Well, and okay, I was gonna ask, like, the color scheme in this movie is very specific.
Yes.
And it's are their suits brown that the agents are wearing, or are they black?
I think it mixes with so their suits are like a tannish brown. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're like a dark. Yeah,
But
I've never noticed that.
It might make it more of an illusion because the entire movie, or at least when they're in the Matrix, has a green filter over it.
Yeah.
So they might actually be more of like a white or a beige, like an off-white color. But yeah, they're wearing tan suits the entire time. Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
But she makes it down to this phone booth. She picks up the phone, and right as she's going to be like ran over by a dump truck.
Yeah.
Well, we don't see it. It's really cool. It's smart that they don't show us what happens to her. They just show the phone booth. And listeners, a phone booth is
so back in 1999, there weren't the cell phones were the size of a refrigerator.
And it was stuck to the ground.
Yeah.
So you just see the hanging phone. You don't see like a mangled corpse. It's just the phone. And then the camera like goes into the phone. And again, this is like 1999 CG effects where they were able to do things with the camera that you had never done before.
This is also pre-Fight Club, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fight Club was out in October, and David Fincher does similar things in that movie.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Probably somewhat inspired.
Yeah. But again, I feel like Fight Club is like a genre-ish movie, but it takes place in somewhat of a real world.
Yeah.
Whereas you kind of let those crazy shots go, and for David Fincher to use those crazy like camera angles where they go like into a phone and all that in kind of more of a real world setting is
elaborate digital shots in that movie.
Really interesting choices. But so then, we cut to Keanu Reeves asleep at his desk, and you guys, he has 3 monitors at his desk. Hacker. Who would need that many monitors on their computer at home? I'm telling you.
Yeah. If you're trying to get into the Matrix, you need at least 3. That's
yes.
the rule.
And they're like huge CRT monitors that are like just the old like tube.
Right, yep.
He's going to need a lot of desk space.
Yeah.
Desk
and
space
power.
for those.
Yeah. He also had he also has the ergonomic keyboard that you're like, he means business.
That's right.
That keyboard
where
is
your hands are like splayed to the sides. Yeah.
Yeah. Which now I use at work and can't type without it. But that's just something that you telegraph to like the audience at home. It's like, look at the setup that he's got.
Right,
This is not the computer room in your in your parents' house.
Yeah. He doesn't like work at the Radio Shack.
Yeah. And yeah, it's interesting that he gets like he gets woken up by his computer, and it's like this crazy like interface is talking to him. He doesn't know what's going on. He's just like, okay,
So wake up, Neo.
yeah. But he's just like, I don't know. Maybe he just thinks he was asleep because there's a knock on the door right after it says knock knock, and you're like, what? Turns out that he's pirating software.
So he makes, makes software that it essentially makes viruses, I guess. And actually, in this scene, when he goes to pull the floppy disk out to give to the people at the door, the book that he opens is a copy, I believe, of Simulacra and Simulation, which is a really big inspiration for this film. And they made a little cameo for it there in that scene.
In the hollowed out book.
Yeah, it's hollowed out. You think it's a book, and it's not. Nothing is as it seems.
Right. This group of people that come to the door, this guy is just like, he looks like such a dirtbag, but he's got like the sexy girlfriend.
I was going to say swung this model-looking girlfriend with the white rabbit tattooed on her.
Yeah.
So they go to a bondage club. And I was reading that this was shot at the Hellfire Club in Sydney, Australia, where they shot the movie. And a lot of the extras are just club patrons of the Hellfire.
Oh, so it's just like really a goth club.
And they just brought their own wardrobe to it, which I think is pretty
amazing.
cool.
Yeah, and you hear
So
we get Rob Zombie and the Prodigy in this scene, I believe. Which
yeah, it starts off with Dragula by Rob Zombie. Is it Rob Zombie or is it White Zombie?
It's Rob Zombie.
I think it's Rob Zombie, yeah. Dragula's kind of a fun song.
Mm-hmm.
It's nostalgic, yeah, for better or worse. It's nostalgic.
Is it on like That's What I Call Music like 2 or something?
Right, yeah, probably around there, yeah.
But Neo's having a terrible time. He is just not enjoying himself at this club. He didn't even want to go. Oh, but did the computer tell him to follow the white rabbit?
Yes.
Yeah.
The last message from the computer is follow the white rabbit, and then he looks
Right.
around and sees it on her shoulder, the tattoo. Yeah.
Yes. On Du Jour, the character's name is Du Jour. I love it.
And he knows it's that Trinity is trying to talk to him, but doesn't know, like, he thinks Trinity is a man, which he tells her in this scene, and she's like, that's what everybody thinks.
Yes, as most like computer hackers of the time probably were.
Right.
Because he recognizes her name from the net. From the net.
Yes, yeah.
Love it.
As they would say back then.
But that's just another thing of that theme of like, thinking she was a man and most people think I am, but she shows up and she's a female and all that. It's just these ideas of, gender and all that. And I guess your handle, what they call themselves, their hacker names, is just kind of like that just becomes their name in the real world later on.
And that actually is another thing I think that can go with the transness of this movie as well.
Mm-hmm.
When I watched this movie last week, I watched it with my roommate, and she made a good point that when Agent Smith constantly calls Neo Mr. Anderson, he's saying like, you can't become like who you actually are. You need to come back into this simulation that I want you to stay in and be trapped in, I think that was a very intentional thing that they probably did, was this sort of dead naming that Agent Smith is doing to Neo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say it's very drag to just be like, well, I chose this name and everybody just calls me that.
Yeah,
nobody calls me, Thomas or whatever. But we get this meeting between the two of them. We find out that he says some nonsense about hacking a mainframe.
Yeah. Right.
Just
just skip over that part. Yeah.
Yeah. She hacked some mainframe. Doesn't matter.
I know what you've been doing. I know why you hardly sleep. Why you live alone and why night after night you sit at your computer. You're looking for him. I know because I was once looking for the same thing. And when he found me, he told me I wasn't really looking for him. I was looking for an answer. It's the question that drives us, Neo. It's the question that brought you here. You know the question, just as I did.
What is the Matrix?
The answer is out there, Neo. It's looking for you. And it will find you if you want it to.
His alarm goes off. He's late for work. He goes to work at Metacortex, this, huge software company, Metacortex. And, I mean, I've been in the software industry for a while now, and I've yet to see anyone wearing a suit. Much less a programmer.
This movie kind of predicted a lot of things, but that was one of them that was very wrong, is that tech companies do not make you wear suits usually to work in your cubicle.
No, not at all. I wear like shorts and a t-shirt most of the time. But my management team is 1,000 miles away, so.
Yeah, there you
go. They're not exactly keeping tabs on what I'm wearing. But he's getting reprimanded for showing up late to work.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and then he gets to his cubicle, and the FedEx envelope comes, and it has the coolest Matrix phone in it that I wanted so bad.
Oh my gosh.
When I first saw this movie.
That would have been a pretty cool phone in '99.
Yeah, especially in Montana. Where you hit the sides of it and it clicks open really quickly.
I was telling Scott there was a kiosk at the mall that would sell, the little like covers for the Nokia phones, and they had like a fakey version of that. It covered up the number pad, and you could like squeeze the sides, and it dropped. It wasn't like spring loaded or anything; it just kind of slid down.
Right. It was
a
knockoff.
No. Yeah, I was totally the knockoff. I mean, it was a kiosk at the mall. These were not official Nokia products. But
and this is when Agent Smith and his goons are trying to find him, and he's talking to Morpheus over the phone, and he's telling him to go outside.
Yeah,
because they're going to get him out.
Well, they're kind of setting up that wherever these people are, they're watching him somehow, because he's like, turn left, turn right, duck down, whatever, go out this window. And he's just like, I'm on a cell phone. Like, what the hell, where are you? Yeah, they try to get him to go out this window at the scaffolding, like the 50th floor or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that some of this is in camera. That they got Keanu out on a ledge.
Oh, my God.
They actually filmed it out on a ledge. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, but I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. There's a lot of scenes in this movie that were done in camera where I was just like, whoa.
Yeah. When Neo gets caught by Agent Smith and we have our little sit down, this is kind of when we figure out, okay, shit's really, there's some crazy stuff going on, because they do the whole, like, they erase Neo's mouth. They unleash this little, like, metal insect into his body, like all this craziness.
So gross.
Yeah, super creepy, super gross. But do they even really tell him why? They're just like
they
interrogating him.
They wanted to give up who he was talking to, and then they say they know he was talking to Trinity.
Right.
And then they do that to just say, like, he can't speak, and also that they're going to put this tracker in him as well.
Right.
And then he wakes up again thinking that was also a dream. Yeah, yeah. And that leads into the scene where they extract it from him.
Yes.
They pick him up in the car.
This, like, crazy car. It's like a limo.
Yeah.
With, like, suicide doors. I love that a lot of the design choices, like the car that they pick him up in, when Morpheus is talking to Neo later on, there's like a television. A lot of it's like really like from the 50s, like really vintage looking.
Yeah. Especially the room that they go into.
Vintage looking furniture and design. And I guess that's just style choices that Morpheus kind of made, probably.
Because I believe the chair that he's sitting in makes a couple more appearances throughout the movie. Mm-hmm. It's kind of his thing.
With the little like they have are there little lion heads on the like armrests or something? Yeah. When they pick him up under this bridge, it's like raining. It's very atmospheric. This is where we first see Switch. Mm-hmm. And she's calling him Copper Top, and she's just like, fuck this guy. Like, she doesn't want him around. She's ready to like ditch him. She means business. Trinity has this crazy like device.
Yeah.
It's like it has like an electric shock thing.
Yeah. And again, it's made to look like they built it themselves, but like, if they are outside of the Matrix and they are hacking into this program, then they're able to make it look like whatever they want, right?
Right.
I guess. Mm-hmm. And I guess they just made it look like this weird, like, I don't even know. It's got like handlebars on it. It's so crazy looking.
And it has like an ultrasound screen on it. If you look at it, it's the same you see like when someone posts an ultrasound photo to Facebook.
Yeah.
It's the same look to it.
Yeah. But I mean, all this to get Neo back to,
he has to have
Morpheus.
He has to have his big sit down with Morpheus, where Morpheus kind of breaks down what the Matrix is.
Mm-hmm. So, I don't know how familiar with the two of you are with this whole situation of like the alt-right kind of trying to ape this whole like take the red pill situation, and it's like, did you watch the movie?
Yeah, or like understand what the movie was about, like that it's like good versus evil kind of thing. Yeah. But of course that's all subjective. But that I was going to mention that this has been since extremely co-opted by the men's rights activist alt-right wing of the internet. Yeah.
Do you remember when I think it was Lana when she replied to
to Ivanka
Trump.
to fuck you.
Like,
Yeah.
Fuck the both of you.
Well, I think Ivanka Trump
both
was
of you.
replying to Elon Musk, and because Elon Musk was like, he just tweeted like, "Take the red pill," and Ivanka was like, "Yes, please," or something like that, and then Lana replied like, "I fucking hate you guys."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, here's the creator of the Matrix telling you that. Yeah.
In like 3 simple words. Fuck you
Right.
both.
Yeah, it's like, I understand that like film is supposed to be like interpretive, and like you can sort of apply your own life to it sometimes when you're interpreting these stories, but it's like, this movie was made by 2 trans women. Like, it's specifically a story about being trans. You can't put that with a anti-feminist men's rights activist movement.
Yeah, totally. Ugh.
Disgusting.
Are they still appropriating that? I mean,
Yeah, I think it's still a thing to
it's still a
say
thing.
is like on whatever message boards, is to say like, when you get quote unquote putting big quotes around this red pilled, is that you realize that you're living in this, feminist, oppressive society, and that the real world is waiting for all these men. Yeah.
oh my god.
Gross.
It's disgusting.
Oh man. All right, and that's the last time we're going to talk about
Yep.
that.
No more airtime for that.
No, we're moving forward. What I remember when I because I bought the VHS of this and I watched it a lot of times, is that they really use Morpheus's mirrored sunglasses to
Yes.
great effect.
Yes.
In this.
Oh, that shot is so cool.
And they
with the pills.
and they
Yes.
don't have
cool.
any like frames that go behind his ears.
Yeah, there's
They
no
just sit-
arms.
They just sit right on his nose.
Yes.
Yeah, he just like pinches them on when he puts them on.
Yeah, like old timey, like Ebenezer Scrooge style.
So was Sean Connery offered Morpheus or the Oracle?
Okay, no.
I know that's speculated
So-
of which one it was.
So the story goes that Sean Connery turned down The Matrix and turned down Lord of the Rings because he didn't understand either of them, right? And
Understandable.
which is fine, yeah. And everybody assumes that he was offered Gandalf and Morpheus, but I don't know that they were just like, who'd be great for Morpheus, this kung fu master? Sean Connery. He was in his 70s.
Yeah.
He was elderly back then. Yeah.
Yeah. So my theory is it was most likely the architect from the sequels.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Because
That
that
makes
actor even
sense.
looks like Sean Connery.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, and I can see Sean Connery playing that character too.
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah. And this whole story about him, getting the offer and passing came out years after the movies were released.
Yeah.
So there's nothing saying that it was, it was for the first movie. So I'm pretty sure it was for the architect character in the sequels.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't read that.
And for Lord of the Rings, it's probably Theoden.
I think he was either Theoden or Boromir's father.
I mean, he got to make his
That jumped off the cliff on fire.
he got to make his steampunk masterpiece, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
God, that I haven't thought about that movie in a long time.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm really onto something, guys. I think I got it.
Gonna hit
This is
it.
going to be the next big thing.
A friend of mine and I went to see The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen in the theater. We walked out.
Oh, really?
So I've yet to talk about when I first saw this movie in the theater.
The
So
Matrix?
I saw The Matrix at the Judith Drive-In, Drew.
Amazing.
In
That would be
our
the best
small
place to
town.
see it, yeah.
I remember I got to sit with all of my sister's cool high school friends, which me being just finishing up my 8th grade year, thought I was the shit. Sitting with all the cool high schoolers outside in lawn chairs. And then I went to it the night after with my stepdad in the actual theater. So I saw it 2 nights in a row.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah. So I was 9 or 10 when this movie came out, and so I did not see it in theaters, but I remember, and you'll be very familiar with this, Scott, is I got it from the movie store in Lewistown, and
Love it.
I was at a friend's house and we rented it, and I remember watching it and just like, I was like, I guess when it came out I was 9 or 10, so I would have been like 11 or 12 when I saw it on DVD or on VHS, and just it like split my little brain open.
is quite the movie for like a kid's sleepover.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
We're gonna put on the
totally.
Matrix.
Yeah, and you think you're so cool watching it too. Like,
Yeah. I mean, since I was like 18 probably at the time when I saw it, 17 or 18, I remember that the one thing that like got my goat was the trailer showed like a lot of
Oh, it shows everything.
really cool special effect shots.
oh,
I was just like, oh, we saw all of that.
Well, I almost kind of think that with Warner Brothers at the time when promoting this movie, I think they were probably very nervous when marketing this movie. Is this going to be a movie that people are going to get and see?
Yeah.
And they put it in a really weird release date, the end of March.
Yeah.
Which now, like Captain America movies can come out in the month of March. But back then, for like a huge platform movie, opening it in the spring was a very conscious move. That they didn't know where to put it. So we're going to put it at the end of March, spring break.
Yeah, and they had spent all this money on it, and they were just like probably not very confident that it was going to do very well.
And we're going to put every money shot in the trailer because we want your ass in the movie theater.
Yeah, they really probably pushed the special effects because they're like, there's nothing else to see here. Just watch the bullet time. You're going to love it.
Yeah. I mean, it put asses in the seats. It worked.
Yeah,
you know,
it
it got
did.
us all to go see it. And that was another thing that I remember people talking about it so much after the fact and people seeing it multiple times in the theater.
Twice in a row?
Yeah. You saw it 2 days in a row.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that is wild.
Yeah, I know I saw it multiple times in the theater. I know I saw it twice, but I don't recall how long after I saw it the second time. But yeah, I bought it. I snatched it up on VHS as soon as I could, and
Did it look beautiful on tape?
on my 22-inch TV.
Honestly, it did look great on tape. I think the graininess probably added to the scenes in the real or in the Matrix. Yeah.
Yeah, made it more atmospheric.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I love it. So, all the stuff where Neo wakes up and like he's in that pod and it's his like.
And this is his rebirth because this is the real Neo.
Right. Yeah. He's never used his eyes before. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All that stuff always grossed me out. I was like,
It's very weird.
Yeah.
There's actually a great essay I read last night in Vox. And for listeners, if you want a good sort of rundown of the Matrix being a trans allegory without reading a lot of academic material, it's called How the Matrix Universalized a Trans Experience and Helped Me Accept My Own by Emily Vanderwerf. And this scene is what the author opens with, because on the internet there's apparently on some online trans communities there's a term called egg, and it just means people that haven't realized that they're trans yet. And so this scene is very like the author talks about this, very reminiscent of being an egg, where you're sort of in this translucent bubble and then you break out of it, you know, and realize that you're trans.
The rebirth.
interesting.
Yeah.
In his big pile of goo.
Interesting.
Among all of
Okay.
your millions and millions of egg people plugged into the Matrix.
Yeah. Which I was just thinking the other night. I was like, why are they continually like making new people? Like, these robots should probably just be cloning people, and it would just be fields and fields of the same damn person. That would be more efficient, but you know.
Yeah.
Then the movie wouldn't be very interesting.
Yeah, and I guess we're led to believe that the machines are extremely sadistic and want the humans to have like little personalities and stuff in the
Right.
Matrix.
Right. Oh yeah, because something about it making the Matrix actually work better.
Right.
Because
yeah.
they would like
Sure.
reject it or something.
Yeah,
if it,
yeah.
Yeah. There you go. All right.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Okay, yeah. This is how like deep into it I was. There after the Matrix came out, but before Reloaded, they released the Animatrix.
Yeah.
Which was a anthology DVD that had 6 or 8, I don't remember how many different little animated shorts, and they were all done in a different animation style, and they all took place in the world of the Matrix. And I think it came out right before Reloaded because it kind of alluded to Jada Pinkett's character,
Yep.
and another like young boy character that was, you know, in the real world and all that. But yeah, I bought that, and that was really fun. I don't know if I'd be very like down to watch it again.
Sure. I was thinking about the Animatrix today. Now, question: when I know that it was very public for the casting of Reloaded that Aaliyah got got a role right before she died. Was it the Jada Pinkett role?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a role of someone who lives in Zion, the underground city where all the humans live.
It's the girlfriend of Mercutio from Romeo and Juliet. Harold Perrineau.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. He's got like a girlfriend character, and Harold Perrineau is only in it because the actor that is in this movie that they were going to bring back, he's kind of the guy that like is behind the computer talking to everybody, uploading everything. Tank.
Marcus Chong
kind of he went a
out.
little Terrence Howard on them. And
like he wanted that Keanu Reeves money.
Yeah,
I was
and
talking to my
said,
friend about the Matrix
hit the road
before we recorded tonight, and he sent me this. There's like a YouTube video that Marcus Chong made of a documentary of himself.
Oh,
just talking about how he was wronged, and I didn't watch the whole thing, but y'all can look it up if you want.
When you're like the seventh lead of this movie, you kind of have to know your place. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, seriously. And I wonder too if he had already been replaced by Harold Perrineau in the sequel, because Aaliyah and he have a very big age difference. So I think it might have worked more with Marcus Chong if he was still in the role, having Aaliyah be there, because she's about my age. And
so she would have been around like 20.
She would have been about, like if that, you know, and Harold Perrineau is like 15 years older than me. So I'm like, okay, all right. But but the sequels are a whole other. That's a whole other story.
I've never seen Reloaded. I've never seen Revolutions. I've never seen the third one.
The third one,
the third one's Revolutions.
Yeah, they really are a whole other episode. I think they get a lot of flack, and rightfully so in some ways. But I do intend to rewatch them eventually. I remember being slightly disappointed, but still sort of just like sitting back and enjoying the ride.
You know, they introduced me to Monica Bellucci, and so I thank them for that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, who is she though?
I remember
she's everything.
I remember when Reloaded came out the summer of 2003. I was in Europe with our history teacher, and Agent Smith was all over like the Paris subways.
Like, okay, that's
for like promotional stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, speaking of the Animatrix, I listened to the episode last week of The Cell, and I almost died laughing, Pete, when you talked about Matrix gays and the video the video of the goths dancing under the underpass.
Under the overpass.
Yeah. My husband and I have watched that video many times and laughed and laughed and laughed.
Did you find the All I Want for Christmas Is You recut of it?
No.
The Mariah Carey edit.
Oh, right.
Everything.
You mentioned that too.
Yeah.
No, but I definitely need to watch that tonight for sure. But yeah, that definitely is a thing. That the Matrix spawned this sort of subculture that was already into cyberpunk, but it just gave them more of a more mainstream outlet, I guess.
Yes.
And yeah, I can definitely see the Matrix gays sort of blending into that for sure.
Yeah.
With the chain pants.
Lots of chains and appendages and things flying around. Just talking really briefly about the sequels, the interesting thing about this movie is that it's tied up very nicely at the end.
Yes.
It does. Yeah.
So if they didn't get the sequels, I would have been like, cool. Wouldn't sequels have been great? Yes, but it works as its own,
and I thought that I read somewhere, maybe you know this, Drew, that this movie was intended, the story, to be a trilogy of movies, and they just had to pare down the story to one movie. So there's almost 3 movies in the Matrix, the first one. The first one.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, because I think that they didn't know if they were going to get the budget that they got. So they were kind of, I think, going back and forth about, cramming in 3 movies or just having this. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. And I will say this about the pacing of it. In my memory, this movie is like 3 hours long and is slower. But then when you revisit it, it is moving right along.
Yeah, totally.
It is like off the ground and running from the very beginning.
Yeah, I agree. When I rewatched this, it was the first time I'd rewatched it in quite a few years. And I think now that I'm in my 30s, I sort of watching it now, it seems to just move a lot quicker than when I watched it as a preteen, basically.
Same.
It just seems so long, and I don't know why. Maybe because there's a ton of dialogue, but there's not really. It's a lot of action scenes and stuff, but it moves along really quickly. And just like we said, and before, the very beginning, you're just dropped right into it, and it just moves. It just goes.
Yeah, I think that's partially why it kind of the pacing feels the way it does, because you don't have any time to stop and think about it, because you're just like, what the hell is going on? So in your head you're trying to keep up, so it's kind of, maybe it's making the pacing move a little faster.
Yeah.
George Lucas said that about the first Star Wars movie, that fans thought that the pacing was too fast in the 70s. Meanwhile, we watched A New Hope now, and you're just like, oh my god, how long is this movie?
Seriously.
Where is Luke Skywalker? What? But George Lucas honestly tells a story about how
it's that
the
weird
notes,
70s pacing of movies.
But he tells a story that the notes were from the audience that they couldn't keep up because they were so confused, but it was just because it was such a new, everything about Star Wars and A New Hope was just brand new.
Yeah, totally.
And that's very similar to what's going on in The Matrix. People at the time were just like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is this? We knew the internet, and we knew industrial music and all that stuff, but it was just so in your face. This is this very specific,
and it's a story
subject matter
that when you revisit this movie now, it makes a lot more sense than when you first watched it. I know that's kind of a weird thing, but I think that with the internet and kind of where culture is now, the story is a lot easier to follow than it was back in 99.
Yeah, I think also our just as a culture too, we consume so much information now that following a movie like this is not as arduous as it was to follow Star Wars in the 1970s.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I also thought about this today too. If The Matrix were made today, they wouldn't really have to change much.
Sure.
It pretty much nails. I mean, the internet is now a really awful cesspool, which they kind of predicted in the movie, but it's most of the movie is pretty spot on with what we're living in now,
Get rid of some hard disks.
Yeah,
you're good to go.
Yeah, maybe do at least a USB, a thumb drive. In that book.
No more zip disks.
So kind of tracking Neo's journey when he finds the crew of the Nebuchadnezzar, right? And he sort of finds out this is the real world, and they start to program him with training, like fighting and stuff.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about the fact that Morpheus is just hell-bent on this idea that Neo is the one.
The Messiah,
right?
Yeah.
Yes. And, Neo and the one are anagrams of each other and, all that. The idea of movies having a prophecy and a chosen one, it's kind of old hat at this point. It's almost a little cliched, but I don't know. I think it works to good effect here because it informs everybody's kind of perception of Neo as this person that's been brought into their group. We've got the Oracle who kind of tells everybody different things about the one and their journey with the one and all of that. She tells Trinity that she's going to fall in love with someone, and the person that she falls in love with is going to be the chosen one.
Yeah.
And I guess she just straight up tells Morpheus, you are going to bring the one that's going to save us out of the Matrix.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that also the whole savior thing too is yet another thing that the Wachowskis borrowed was just sort of like a biblical storyline that like there's even like a death and rebirth scene at the very end of this movie, you know, where he dies and comes back and he's got all these superpowers now, you know. Yeah, it's very much so.
It's very easy for audiences to relate to. I think that's why you see archetypes like that a lot.
Yes. Is that part of the hero's journey? Not necessarily.
I think so.
Yeah. Does it fall into that? What's that that author? That all informed Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and all of that. But yeah, that's you can look that up. But Neo's not convinced, you know, that he's the one. And when we do go to see the Oracle, I love this scene. It's a very fun scene.
Yeah, it's one of the best scenes in the movie.
Yeah. You want to talk about things being green in the Matrix? It is Emerald City when he walks in to the Oracle's apartment.
I think even her dress is green. I think in this scene.
Her clothing is all green. Her, you know, the tiling, everything. It's all greens and browns in her apartment. And
also kind of a gag that we forget about being the audience member for the first time when you watch it, that the Oracle is an old black woman. You expect that it's a man.
Yep.
All Morpheus says that the Oracle is very old, and they've been with us for, since the beginning of the Resistance and all that stuff. And you walk in and it's just a sweet little old black lady making cookies.
Yep, she's making cookies. Yeah, in the sequels, or maybe I think she smokes in this one too, but in the sequels
she does.
She just smokes like a chimney. Yeah.
Yes. Well, that actress died of lung cancer.
I think that she died pretty. Yeah. I think that it was during production of Reloaded.
Well, they replaced her in the third movie, and they just played it up like it happens. It's just a computer program. This is not what I look like.
They can take different forms. Yeah.
Although going from a sweet elderly black woman to another sweet elderly black woman, I feel like maybe if that was truly the case, like, oh, it doesn't matter what I look like, I'm just a computer program.
Right, yeah.
Like, I don't know, make her a puppy, or I don't know.
I always really love when rewatching this movie the interaction with the little bald kid and the spoon.
Yeah,
I was
spoon
just
boy.
say, there is no spoon. Yeah.
Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.
There is no spoon?
Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends. It is only yourself.
Yeah, that's really great. All the, what did she say? All the other applicants or whatever.
So are they applicants for the one?
Yeah. They're all like in the waiting room waiting to be called on her to see if they're the one. Yeah.
Yes. And what we find out in the sequels is that there are other ships like the Nebuchadnezzar with other crews. And so maybe those other captains, when they're out doing stuff in the Matrix, they're coming across these kids who are sensitive to manipulating the Matrix in some way. And when they find them, they bring them here to see what the Oracle has to say.
I wonder what their recruitment is for finding
This
people.
is all very Clone Wars, by the way.
How they recruit people like Carrie-Anne Moss and Switch and Joey.
They found Morpheus. They are hackers. Everybody on the Nebuchadnezzar, including like the young kid, Mouse, they're all computer hackers, programmers somehow. So they all, they were able to, manipulate the internet and computers and all that to get to a certain level. And I think these like captains like Morpheus see that they have cast this net, and they're like, who out there has the skill set to like crack what's going on. And so I think that's kind of the idea, right? Well,
and during all of this that's happening, the Joey, I want to call him Joey Pants.
Joey Pants,
because that's his nickname.
Joey Pants.
Joey
Pantoliano,
really good in this movie, and later reunited with Carrie-Anne Moss in Memento. Even though I don't think that they have any scenes together.
Oh,
he's kind of his journey of you know, the real world is overrated. I'd rather sell y'all out and just be in the Matrix.
He's the turncoat.
Yep. Yeah, the scene where he's eating a steak with Agent Smith. I'm sure that was just eating steak over and over again was a great.
And he knows that it's fake, but he just doesn't care.
He doesn't give a shit.
Ignorance is bliss.
Get me out.
Yeah.
You know, the Oracle tells Neo that he's not the one.
But
Did
then-
you believe it?
All right.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, but we find out that that was all he needed to hear, and he actually was the one.
Yeah, it was a switcheroo. She tells them what the it doesn't matter.
And
that
she
it was,
knew that he was still on his journey.
Yeah.
She wasn't going to do this like the easy way. He had to do it the hard way.
Yeah, and we find out too that in the third movie anyway, that the one is a reoccurring thing in the Matrix.
Right.
Like they keep like the Oracle's program is just made to find the one, and then it just starts over and over and over again.
Right. Who's going to get them out of that iteration?
Yeah.
He's the one that's for this current iteration of the Matrix. So Joey Pants at the beginning of this like intro into the Matrix to talk to the Oracle, he like sets up this tracking program for the agents. It's this huge ambush, big action sequence. Morpheus gets kidnapped. And when they start pulling everybody out, they pull out Cypher, Joey Pants' Cypher.
Yep.
Pull out Cypher first. Bad idea. And he goes and like uses his laser gun. I love the weaponry in this. They tell you when it is. It's like 21:55 or something, and
Something
they're these
like that, yeah.
plasma weapons, very like crude, plasma discharge type of weapons.
Even the Nebuchadnezzar is just kind of just a bucket of bolts, you know?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It is falling apart at the seams. And by the end of this movie, I don't even know how it's still flying. It is like, it is ripped apart.
A full hole ripped in it.
Yeah.
So whenever
Multiple.
I see Joey Pants in a movie, I remember reading in Rob Lowe's book where he wrote about doing a TV show with him, and he has an earpiece that his assistant feeds him all of his lines.
Love it.
So I'm always kind of looking for an earpiece whenever Joe is on screen.
He's always standing with his his face to the left or something like that. Yeah.
And I remember reading in Best Movie Year Ever, the 1999 book, that he got a liposuction job with Warner picking up the bill
For the Matrix?
for this movie. Yep.
Wow.
Which is funny because I don't think that you get a good shot of his body in the entire movie that you can really show off this lipo job. But I just think that's kind of funny.
Yeah, that's really it's like
I
funny.
love that. I'll do your movie, but you're going to pay for my lipo.
You're going to pay for my tummy tuck.
He's that kind of an actor, I guess.
The medical bills must have been sky high in general for this movie because I know Neo broke his hip doing choreography.
Keanu Reeves broke his neck doing this movie.
Oh
when
my
you
God.
watch the special features, he's wearing a neck brace half the time.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it on my VHS, and they don't really talk too much in depth about it, but he's wearing this neck brace as he's doing a lot of the stunt choreography training.
A lot of his stunts had to be cut around it, and you never really see Neo kick.
Yep.
They sort of had to choreograph everything around that.
Yeah, there's one scene at the very end when he beats Agent Smith. He kicks and kind of swings his legs slowly over and then down, and that's like the only major kick you really see. Yeah.
That's crazy. Did Carrie-Anne Moss get hurt? I don't remember.
I don't know that I'm not sure that she did
Yeah, I'm not sure that she did.
because she's pristine and perfect.
Yes.
I mean, the fight choreography in this movie also just revolutionized action movies and how you shot them.
Yeah.
That these were not how Hollywood usually photographed fighting.
Totally, yeah. Well, and I guess that we could talk about bullet time too. Is just like they got the inspiration from like Japanese, I think not just anime, but just different action movies. But they I think, revolutionized the idea of putting a bank of cameras in an arc around a scene and then filming it in real time, but it's like slow motion, almost stop motion as it goes around the subjects. It's just so crazy. Which, of course, as we talked about earlier, was parodied over and over and over again in the early 2000s.
Still looks pretty cool.
I mean, it does still look really cool.
Yeah, the choreographer for this movie was Yuan Wu-ping, who did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlie's Angels right after this movie.
Well, it's actually his son that did Charlie's Angels.
Oh, sure, okay.
It's his son that did Charlie's Angels. But but that's the thing that I was going to say. You know, before this movie, action movies that had fighting and hand-to-hand fighting, it was just a very like street fight kind of a situation. People just punching and kicking and all of that. And after this, it was just martial arts everywhere. Yeah. Everything was just martial arts.
Totally.
And, I mean,
and then along came the Bourne Identity, where it was a little more raw, handheld cameras, kind of putting you in the scene.
Yeah,
but that's like a whole other thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that almost was like a Krav Maga MMA style of
right.
fighting. Yeah.
Yes. But didn't the Bourne Identity also give us like parkour?
Yeah.
Or was that Bond? Yeah.
I think
I think it's a little bit of both.
Because he's just constantly running through Paris or whatever, like a European city of some sort. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. But also, didn't the cast on this movie train for something like 4 or 6 months, or just of the martial arts training?
Time. Yeah. It was a long time.
But what you get from that is Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne in camera fighting each other.
Yes. Yeah. It doesn't look like it's shot with doubles.
And it looks amazing.
Yeah, it's wild. That scene where they first go into the dojo simulation is just like, so crazy.
I know Kung Fu.
I feel like during the initial whoa when we were watching it last night, I must have just been like looking at my phone, or both of us were not even paying attention, because we laughed at the I know Kung Fu, but we didn't even catch the whoa. Whoa! When Morpheus jumps across multiple like buildings.
It's that damn phone. We have to be plugged into the Matrix, which is our phone.
I know. Second screen. We can't just watch a movie. Be looking at something. Jesus. But, okay. So Morpheus is captured. They can't pull him out of the Matrix because he's like, his mind is captured by them or something. So they have to go in and like save him. So then we get the big, trench coat, building lobby shootout situation.
Yep.
And I don't think that anybody wears trench coats as good as these two.
Oh my god, yeah. So
it never
amazing.
works. It has to be Keanu and Carrie.
Yeah. And the black sunglasses too. This is like the classic outfit when you think of the Matrix. It's like on the cover of the film is them wearing these outfits. Yeah. Insane.
And the Matrix sunglasses were back like last year.
Yeah,
it was like,
people are wearing.
You couldn't go anywhere without seeing those little skinny little sunglasses.
Oh, they are all over Brooklyn. Yes. Yes.
So I was reading that the lobby shootout took 10 days to shoot, and outside of the wire work, all of the effects were practical.
Oh man,
there's surprisingly limited digital shots.
Yeah,
there.
I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild because the walls are just exploding.
Yep.
Everywhere.
Yeah, I was gonna say it must have been a bitch to reset.
And I was also reading that Carrie's big flip, they got that in the first take.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Damn.
She like flips like clockwise. It's weird. I don't even know how they do that. Keanu does a triple kick in that one though, where he jumps up, and they copied in Charlie's Angels, and Cameron Diaz does it, and it looks really cool. But again, this is something that has kind of been co-opted, and I mean, I'm not gonna comment, put in too much like my 2 cents about the types of people that wear a trench coat in their everyday life.
Well, also we won't get into it too much, but I mean, Columbine was April, and this came out at the end of March, so
yeah, there was a big sort of panic about the Matrix for a little bit. Similarly, with Marilyn Manson as well with Columbine because of the outfits that the shooters wore. Yeah.
Yeah. But creeps have been wearing trench coats since long
This is
before
true.
the Matrix.
Yeah,
so.
and Marilyn Manson was around before then, and he's around now. Yeah, it's a classic thing that America does. Is it creates a boogeyman, and they tried to do it with the Matrix, and it didn't really work. Thankfully.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like you watch this scene and you're just like, oh my God, this is brutal. They're just like murdering all these security guards. But it's like, they're in the Matrix, and it's like any of the situation is when they're in there and the agents are after them, the agents can jump into anybody's body that's around them. So if there's another person in the room, they got to get the hell out. So they need to get through all these people. So it's kind of brutal, but I don't know, it's maybe video game logic.
Yeah,
I
they're
guess.
just being practical. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, when you watch
trying to save the world,
when you watch like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies from the 80s, like Commando, I would almost argue that movies like that are way more violent than The Matrix.
Yeah. The Matrix is violent as in like hand-to-hand combat. There's like the blood you do see is like they get punched in the mouth or something. It's not really that violent as far as that goes.
it's not gory or graphic or anything like that.
Yeah.
When we do get up to the rooftop, there's like the big money shot of the movie.
Oh yes,
of Keanu, with the
trench
coat and the bullet time.
The bullet time shot.
That.
I think it's so cool that at the time that they could pull off shooting Keanu's scenes on a green screen stage and then photographing the top of the building and dropping them in, and it looks like it's all on camera.
Yeah, it looks legitimate.
Like it looks pretty seamless. This isn't like The Room.
There was quite a bit of green screen work in this movie, and it all looks so real. Like they did a great job with that for sure. We also get the classic Trinity dodge this in this scene.
Yes,
love that.
The agent's about to kill Neo, and she walks up behind the agent and puts a gun to his head and says, "Dodge this," and kills him.
Yeah, yeah. I always thought it was really cool. These scenes leading up to when they get the helicopter, she hijacks this helicopter. The helicopter's crashing. She jumps out. It's like this crazy shot, this crazy effects thing. She's like on this chain. He's like pulling this rope up the side of the building, and that's when Morpheus looks in. He's like, "Oh shit, he is the one."
Yeah. There's no doubting it now. And I think they also there's a cut scene in this too where they're all watching the code back on Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah. And they're like, "Whoa!" Everyone kind of figures out at this point that he's the one. Yeah.
Okay, this is right. Yeah.
So back when we could still go to movie theaters, when they did the 20-year re-release of this movie in Dolby. I remember watching this scene in the movie theater, the helicopter scene, and just being like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This movie holds up.
It really does. The way that the glass ripples in the building as it explodes is just, it's crazy. It really holds up for sure.
And did this win the Academy Award for editing?
It won pretty much all of the technical awards.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot to say about the 1999 Academy Awards and how a lot of the best work did not really get nominated or win. But The Matrix won all of the technical awards, the sound categories, best film editing, which is usually the best picture winner. Hint, if you're doing your Oscar ballots, that usually is what wins editing, but not always. And also visual effects. But The Matrix didn't seem like it would ever make Best Picture just because of genre bias.
It's being a sci-fi movie, they just weren't going to give it to it, which just sucks.
I mean, let's nominate The Green Mile and Cider House Rules over The Matrix.
Right.
And so that's kind of when stuff like the Academy Awards is just out of touch in the grand picture of what are the movies that are going to be remembered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think also, again, they just did not expect the movie to do or be as good as it was. Yeah. And they were like, oh, well, Cider House Rules still. We're going to nominate that instead.
Oh, man.
We got to talk about the big subway face-off with Agent Smith. So I read in some of my research that I think it was Lana, that when she was kind of going through it, when Lana was a man that she tried to commit suicide
Yes.
on a subway track.
That's right. Yeah, she has a speech with the HRC. That's really great. And yeah, she tells that story, and she almost a man basically distracts her long enough to prevent her from jumping in front of the train. Yeah.
And this is a big moment for Neo, because this is when he's sort of reached like the one.
Yeah.
This is when it all really like comes together for Neo. So I think that's pretty interesting that it happens on a subway track.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't even think about that, but that makes sense. Yeah, in this scene, Morpheus and Trinity use a payphone down in the subway station to get out, and right before Trinity goes, she says that she was going to tell Neo that the Oracle told her that she was going to fall in love with the One, but then right when she tries to, an agent takes over a homeless man that's sleeping next to the phone booth and shoots the phone before he can get to it, and that's where it begins.
Yep. And he says, "My name is Neo."
Well, when he keeps calling him Mr. Anderson.
Yeah,
So
my
it's-
name is Neo.
My name is Neo.
Yeah, more of that dead naming thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is Neo's final like showdown. He's got to make his way out. He's got to just run like hell to get to another phone somewhere. And they're like, it's across town. Just sprint. Just run away from them. Finally gets there. Opens the door. Agent Smith is inside. Shoots him like 20 times.
Yep.
And all this is going on at the same time as these like flying squid robots are like tearing apart the Nebuchadnezzar in the real world. And they can't use their only defense, which is an electromagnetic pulse, because Neo's still strapped into the Matrix, and if they do it, it'll fry his brain.
Yep.
So they got to bring him out. He's shot like 10 times. He's dying. And Trinity kind of kisses him back to life.
The Oracle told me that I would fall in love and that that man, the man that I loved, would be the one. So you see, you can't be dead. You can't be. Because I love you. You hear me? I love you. Now get up.
Yeah. And he fully just like stands up.
And
I like
he like absorbs Agent Smith.
Yeah. I do like it though when she's like, get up. And like she screams at him.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, he stops the bullets because that was the thing that he talked to Morpheus about. He was like, you need to be faster, you need to be faster. And he says, am I going to dodge bullets? And Morpheus says, you won't have to. Because he just stops him midair.
Yeah.
So he jumps into Agent Smith, explodes him from the inside out, jumps on the phone call, gets sucked back in. They're able to use the pulse and destroy the robots.
Yep. The electric
And
squiddies
then-
are done.
Yeah. And then it just kind of cuts to Neo on the phone. It's this like voiceover of him talking to somebody.
I mean, they're still fighting the man.
So I think this phone call that Neo's making is to somebody that
Yes.
they are going to wake up.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
right.
I think so too.
They're still sticking it to the man.
Yeah. They're still doing it, making it work.
Rage Against the Machine is playing in the background, and that's what leads us out.
And Neo flies away.
He's
Does he
Superman's
fly?
away.
Does he fly in the sequels?
Yes.
Yeah, he does.
I have
Yeah.
I have zero memory of Reloaded, and I've never seen Revolution. So
Yeah, it's like his main thing is he flies around. Yeah.
that's crazy. But like, this is the type of ending that like a trilogy of movies would work up to. And we got it all in the first movie.
Yeah, and that's why the movie just sort of stands alone. Like I think it was Pete saying earlier, like if it was just The Matrix, it would be fine by itself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like the other movies kind of go so big just because they really did so much in this movie that they're like, okay, we need to like now top it or kind of show why we needed to make a trilogy to kind of explain the whole story, but they really are so much bigger in scope than this movie. But yeah, this one really does stand alone. We don't see his butt until Reloaded, though.
I think it's Reloaded when that happens. Yeah.
finally has a sex scene with Trinity.
Isn't there like an orgy rave scene?
There is. Yeah, there's like a rave happening in the cave next door in Zion.
Oh, of course, yes.
Their little cave bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, not what I expected Zion to look like, but hey.
Yeah. Again, it could be its own episode, the sequels for sure.
Oh yeah. We're not going to get too deep at all into any of that. But,
kind of wrapping up, the movie definitely is a very big allegory for transgender empowerment, but really all of the LGBT community can relate to the journey that Neo goes on. Is the Matrix like the prison that we all were?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or that
just kind of the expectation of having to be straight.
Right. Yeah, that the simulation is just that we're all being forced to live in this life, and it's harder for some to break out of it than others. But it's like it definitely is a relatable thing for sure for a lot of people, for a lot of queer people. Definitely.
Yeah.
And Trinity says the Matrix cannot tell you who you are when they're in the car on the way to.
The Oracle.
The Oracle.
Right.
Yep.
And the Matrix also cannot let you use contractions when you are inside of it, because there are no apostrophes in the Matrix. The dialogue is very specific. You cannot use contractions while you're inside.
Yeah, as Morpheus tells Neo on the rooftop after the helicopter scene, the difference is between knowing the path and walking the path. And that's like coming out. The end.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. See, I just thought it was like the fashions and like and cute Keanu, but there's so much more to this.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers in this story going on.
For sure.
And I think to this day, I feel like most just your average, like, straight movie watcher fan of The Matrix is kind of blissfully unaware of, like, what's going on.
I mean, that's why all the there's all those people with the red pill stuff, They just...
Yeah.
They miss the point entirely.
Yes, exactly.
And, I remember at the time, like I said, the Wachowskis they were notoriously private, right? You didn't see a lot they didn't grant a lot of interviews, anything like that. They didn't want to be celebrities. They wanted the work to speak for itself. But what you did see was that they were just kind of like average, regular looking people. They weren't flashy. They just had like backwards baseball caps and flannels, and they're just directing these movies. But then every now and then you heard something crazy. You were like, oh, and then the one has like a dominatrix, and then all this stuff starts coming out, and then you're just like, okay, but whatever, like, who cares? It's fine, dominatrix. And it's interesting that, you mentioned the HRC speech that Lana gave, and I think that's really the first time that the two of them decided, okay, I may not want to, be a public person, but now that they are both, trans and they're very visible, it's kind of like they kind of had this thought that they did kind of owe it to the community, the trans community, to kind of speak up, because
you kind of gain this responsibility that, or this sense of responsibility anyways.
Yeah. But it's still hard to find out, information about the two. I was like, because I know that Lana remained married to her wife for years after she transitioned, and I was just like, are they still married? I don't know. Like, it's not readily available, it's not just like personal life.
They're notoriously private, and I think even when Lily came out as trans, she didn't want. I don't think she intended to do it publicly, but a reporter essentially outed her in an article, and I don't remember which publication it was, but that wasn't that long ago. That was like in 2015 or 2016. Yeah.
And Lana, I believe, is solely directing the fourth Matrix movie. Although I would assume that Lily probably has a good input of what is going to be in the movie. But a lot of the Matrix 4 is kind of a mystery. Nobody really knows the story of it.
Yeah. I was trying really hard to find some stuff, but it's pretty bare bones on the internet right now.
I kind of have a theory that it could be an alternate reality of Neo takes the blue pill.
Yeah.
And then you just sort of see this path, and then it eventually catches up with him, and he ends up being the chosen one anyways. But who knows?
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, because I don't even know if it's an actual direct sequel or if it's just sort of in the
another Matrix.
In the universe of the Matrix. Yeah. So
because like I feel like even like Lawrence Fishburne is not confirmed, right? I think
he's
not.
Only just he won't be. Yeah.
Which is like
that's a bummer.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
But I mean, I'm excited. I trust that it can be something.
Well, it's going to be streaming on HBO Max. Because that's the direction of the industry now.
Right.
Who cares?
Like
as long as I get to see it.
Yeah.
And look at this cast: Jessica Henwick from Game of Thrones and Underwater, Jonathan Groff and Neil Patrick Harris. That's interesting.
Oh, that is interesting.
Is it going to be a musical?
They got Jada Pinkett back.
Okay, I'm not mad at Jada Pinkett.
Mm-hmm.
I love Jada Pinkett Smith. Yeah,
I kind of love Jada Pinkett. I know she's kind of a loudmouth, and maybe people think she might be a little annoying, but I think she's fun.
Yeah. Well, in the sequels too, she's really great. Her character is great, Niobe.
And for me, my introduction to Jada Pinkett was A Different World, and I really loved her character Lena on A Different World. So I think that's why I kind of have this affinity.
I always
for
forget
her.
that she was a child actress.
Because as a kid, I watched her on this show, and
right.
I just really liked her because I loved A Different World. Oh my god!
So we did not watch Sense8, but I know that Sense8 has a big following behind it.
Yes, it does.
And Pete and I are weird apologists for Jupiter Ascending.
I actually have not seen it.
We think it's kind of cool. It's pretty dumb. It's not anywhere of the level of like The Matrix.
It definitely doesn't have the following.
We think it's kind of fun.
Yeah,
it's beautiful,
I haven't seen Jupiter Ascending. I liked V for Vendetta. I thought it was fine. I think
they wrote V for Vendetta. They did not direct it.
Oh, right, they didn't direct it. They wrote it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They also did another movie that I did not see, which was Speed Racer, the live action.
I was going to say we have yet to talk about Speed Racer, and Speed Racer is its own other episode because that movie is cuckoo bananas.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
It's
that
crazy.
It's just all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't get it.
And I've never been that big of a fan of Cloud Atlas. I know that it has its big supporters, which I think is great, but it was never really my thing.
Yeah, the book is a huge thing, and it just to try and make that into one movie is just it is an undertaking. And
sure,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I like Jupiter Ascending. It's beautiful. It's goofy.
It sort of recycles the chosen one prophet,
but it's Mila
archetype,
Kunis this time,
and it's Mila Kunis. Yep.
And but it's like if you love sci-fi and if you love like 80s sci-fi, it has a very Flash Gordon feel.
Also, it's an original sci-fi movie, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's an original IP, which is you don't see that a lot lately.
Yeah, I need to see
I feel like in our community, we kind of take what a trailblazer both Lana and Lily are, but they are two out and trans directors of major Hollywood movies.
Yeah,
totally.
That's quite an accomplishment.
And they've maintained their own sort of. They get to do what they want essentially. Like they're just given a blank check for a lot of these movies, and that's they have a huge respect for sure. So.
Yeah.
Well, I think we did it. Like Sasha Bell, we cracked the code.
We cracked
the code, y'all.
Yeah, we're in the real world now. Love
oh
it.
Man. Just have to wear these tattered rags all the time.
Yeah.
I just really want my cool Matrix leather pants. I don't know what like my Matrix outfit would be.
I don't know. They don't look very comfortable.
Yeah, like especially for fighting and martial arts, it doesn't seem like it's very practical. Yeah.
No. Yeah, I always maintained I could never be goth. I'd just run hot. I would just sweaty, all that vinyl and PVC. I would just no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't do it. But yeah, I think we cracked the code. I think we made it through. I mean, there's so much to be said about the Matrix that we haven't even touched on.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, in our limited time, I think we got through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of surprised that this wasn't on my original outline and kind of
I thought it was.
long list of movies that I didn't have The Matrix. I'm glad that we did it.
Yeah, me too.
So, this is the 7th movie from the year 1999 that we've done.
I know, it's like just a golden year.
Yep.
It's a lot of good stuff.
And I feel like this is just sort of like we were just building up to The Matrix.
Yeah.
We were building up to this episode with our 1999 movies. Our last one that we did was The Mummy.
Okay.
Oh, that was a great episode. Yeah, what made me think of The Matrix was y'all did Drop Dead Gorgeous. It was a great episode.
Thank you.
And that made me think. I was like, oh, The Matrix came out that year as well.
Drop Dead Gorgeous and Dick released summer of '99.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. Well, we definitely recommend everybody to go out and watch The Matrix again if you haven't seen it in a while.
It has to be streaming on HBO Max. This is like a major Warner movie.
I think
I'm sure it
on
is.
HBO Max, yeah.
It's on Amazon Prime. That's where I watched it. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. So so it's readily available out there, or you can just dig up your old VHS.
Yeah.
But we definitely recommend giving it a rewatch and tell us if you love the sequels. We'll talk about that in the comp.
Well, thanks for having me, y'all.
Thanks for coming on. This was
great.
so
Thank
much
you so
fun.
much.
This was
So,
really great,
yes, Drew and I went to high school with each other, and we
did.
studied at the same college program at the University of Montana. We were both radio and television majors. I was a year ahead of Drew. So, yeah.
Yep,
Look at me putting my RTV degree to good work.
Yeah, it all comes full circle. Yes. Yeah. Undergrad and high school, for sure.
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We hope to have you on again sometime in the future.
Yeah,
Yes.
that'd be great.
But-
Would love that.
All right.
All right.
Lovely.
Bye,
Well, until
y'all.
then, we'll see you
All
next
right.
time.
Bye, Drew.
Good night.
You too. And thank you so much for listening, everybody. That was a fun episode. Love the Matrix.
It was a good one.
Well, it's time for some shout-outs. Just like at the end of every episode, we've got some fun Patreon shout-outs.
Patreon shout-outs.
Hello to, so let's say hi to Jimmy, Genevieve, Dawn, Josh, Aaron, Melinda and Jim, Jessica, John, Nick, Christine, Rufino, and Mitch. Thank you for being a friend.
We just recorded a new Watch With Us commentary on Empire Records.
Yes, we
and
did.
if you join Patreon, you can check those out.
You can get access to our Watch With Us commentary tracks. You can put in the movie, press play on the commentary, and listen to us gab nonstop. Tons of fun. We would love it if you would rate and review our show.
Give us 5 stars.
Go over to Apple Podcasts, give us 5 stars, and write us a fun review. Oh, we just got a new review. I'll read it aloud. It started with one podcast episode. Then, before I knew it, I was downloading them left and right. These guys are funny. Destiny R. Thank you, Destiny.
Thank you, Destiny. That's so sweet.
Yes, we love you. We hope we're keeping up the funny and come back and listen to more episodes. But yeah, everybody go out and write us a review. We'll read it on the air.
Follow us on Facebook at Movies That Made Us Gay.
And Instagram.
And Instagram. And Twitter at MTMUGPod.
Yes, indeed. You can find me, Pete, on Twitter and Instagram at Peter Lasagna.
I'm Oscar Scott on Twitter and Scott Youngballer on Instagram. And follow me on Letterboxd. See what I'm watching.
Yes, indeed. Well, we will see you next week, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.